One of the series champs hits more milestones. A dream come true on the Magic Mile. Is it better to be lucky than good sometimes? And the first and hopefully only installment of the Flat Track Flashback airing of Grievances. What's up, everybody? It's Scotty here with Flat Track Flashback, and we're coming off of the first mile of the year, the Magic Mile, there in Quoin, Illinois. The whole week of amateur nationals leading up to a spectacular mile race, and the racing just high, wide, and handsome around the air fence. Listening to him on the broadcast, just pinned wide open going through the corners. A spectacular night of racing that saw as close to a margin of victory as can happen in this sport in one of the classes. We're going to lead things off talking about the twins class. Super exciting to see riders back from injury. Ben Lau, Max Whale, Cody Johncox got hurt earlier in the year. It's cool to see him at the track as well. We get to see Trevor Bruner back from his suspension. And how about Jesse Janisch paying homage to J.R. Schnabel with that number plate font? Really cool to see Jesse back and repping that style of a fellow Wisconsin professional. J.R. Schnabel, one of the most exciting riders to watch through the early to mid 2000s. And Jesse repping that 33 was really cool to see Jesse back at the track and showing off that font on the Kawasaki. In practice and qualifying, it looked pretty clear who was going to be the favorite on the night. Even though he didn't set fast time overall, Jared Mees was always able to break away from the pack and break the draft in practice and qualifying. He would mix it up with the guys a little bit, but then he would get just far enough out to where people weren't able to draft past him. Jared's corner exit was phenomenal, and he was able to utilize that quite a bit and really give us a preview of what to expect later in the night. Well, as we said, he wasn't the fastest overall. He was faster than everybody by 2/10 in qualifying too, but that wasn't enough to usurp Brandon Price, who set quick time overall in the night. And props to Brandon Price, who was not 100%, had been battling illness all week and an infection, and he shows up at the track, sets quick time out there on the mile. Not somebody I had in my cards as being the fast qualifier on the night. But way to go, Brandon, to set fast time and be on the pole for that first heat race. In that first heat, we got to see Brandon Price, Briar Bauman, Trevor Bruner, Davis Fisher all dice it up front early, with Declan Bender closing up on them later in the race. And it's always funny to watch on mile racing, all the guys who try to motion behind them to get people to line up, and then they just get swallowed up by a pack. Although one thing that's not awesome is to watch guys battle head shake. And Declan Bender and Trevor Bruner were having a fit with this in this particular heat race. They were able to fight through it, but man, it looked uncomfortable, and I'm sure it was very sketchy to have to deal with that. And on these miles, it's something that's becoming more and more frequent, I've noticed, over the past couple of years. But Declan and Bruner were able to hold on to their bikes and get through this race and make it into the main event. But they would have to finish behind Brandon Price, who gets the win, and Briar Bauman, who came home second. Afterwards, Davis Fisher and Trevor Bruner, they exchanged words coming off of turn 2, and that wouldn't be the only time these two would have a little post-race altercation on the night. Second heat race, we get to see the top 3 in points all on the front row. Brandon Robinson, Dallas Daniels, Jared Mees, the top 3 finishers, not in that order in points, nor last year's finish. But that was the podium last year at Doin, and that's the 3 guys who have been atop the standings this year. The real main title contenders right there in that first heat race. But as they would go into turns 1 and 2, another rider would try to get around the outside of everybody off a great start. Dalton Gauthier, it looked like he was going to steal the lead coming off of turn 2, but just couldn't quite clear everybody. And unfortunately for Dalton, he would get shuffled back into a ferocious battle for 5th with Max Whale, Kevin Stallings, and Bronson Bauman as this race would go on. At the front of the field, Jared Mees gets the lead, separates himself by just enough over Dallas Daniels, who was separated by just enough over Brandon Robinson to where they couldn't draft each other. Jared Vanderkooi relatively lonely in 4th, and that battle for 5th, them dicing it up and fighting for position back there, well, they were almost a second a lap slower than the leaders and kept fading back, but they kept the entertainment value up as they wrestled for those final 2 transfer spots. Jared Mees would go on to take the win. Dallas Daniels would join him in the dash, and we would see Max Whale and Kevin Stallings get the best of that battle and move on into the main event, pushing Dalton Gauthier and Bronson Bauman into an LCQ. In that last chance qualifier, we got to see Dalton Gauthier, Bronson Bauman, Ben Lau, Jesse Janisch, and Cody Johncox break away from the pack. Dan Bromley would come home a pretty lonely 6th, but that is a transfer spot. However, he wasn't mixing it up with the leaders up front. And the last chance would see Bronson Bauman pick up his 3rd LCQ win of the year, and probably not the category he wants to be having the most of. I guess last chance wins are better than DNFs, but Bronson has become a bit of the lord of the last chance. Also talking about head shake, boy, did Briar Bauman have a bit of a time with that in this Dash for Cash. Again, so many people fighting that head shake on the miles, and it just makes it so difficult for you to hang on to and to really stay in the pack. It's just really nervous seeing so many riders having to battle with that. So Briar fighting that a little bit allowed Dallas Daniels, Brandon Price, and Jared Meese to really settle this Dash for Cash amongst themselves. And I'm used to seeing in the miles, you come off a turn 4 and everybody's in a line and then they fan out and draft. Well, this particular race, this Dash for Cash, these guys came off a turn 4, basically 3 wide in a straight up drag race to the line. And Jared Meese would get the best of the Yamahas in this dash. He would pick up the win and carry momentum into the main event. We talked last week about Quoin being a pretty much must-win for Jared if he wants to keep his championship competitive as we head into that break before Peoria, because of the next couple of rounds, I would think Dallas Daniels is probably going to be favored to do better at Peoria and Sturgis if it becomes a thing for points. Before the main event got it going, we have our rider introductions, and pretty much everybody goes with the flow on that. It's your standard high, wave, point at your helmet, walk to the line, look awkward. But you've got Declan Bender, who shows personality, actually embraces that moment, hypes up the crowd, and he was rocking the American flag on this weekend, this 4th of July weekend, and Declan has been winning rider introductions lately. And it was really cool to see Declan was partnered with Evil Hours Racing this weekend. And if you aren't aware of what Evil Hours Racing is, or what Eric Hartley and that team do, please check them out. We'll post a link to their website in the video bio. It would be the first link right after the video description. So please check them out if you're able to. It's really awesome what Eric and that team have been able to do. He's paid for veterans to attend flat track events, to compete at times during flat track races, cover their entry fees, and just what that organization does as a whole, helping veterans and victims of post-traumatic stress disorder. As the lights go out and away we go, if I can borrow a phrase from F1, the riders charge into turn 1, a couple of hairy moments on the opening lap, as is tradition with the opening lap of an American flat track race, but everybody gets through. Again, so much head shake from some of these guys. We do see Jared Meese, Dallas Daniels, Brandon Price, and Briar Bauman break away from the pack, and Brandon Robinson fades into the second group of riders, and very, very big for his championship. Big loss for his championship, not being able to mix it up with that front 4 throughout this night. Brandon, again, runner-up last year in Quoin. He didn't really factor into anything on the night, just seemed a little bit off throughout the day, and he was having to dice it up in that second pack of riders to try to get inside the top 5. And that second group was really fun to watch at times. You got to see Cameron Smith leading that group, Trevor Bruner leading that group at times. Declan Bender got ahead of that group at times. But up front, it would be Jared Meese, who separated himself a little bit from Dallas, Brandon Price, and Briar Bauman. And Dallas, Brandon, and Briar would work together. Briar would get ahead of the other two and try to get them to fall in line to chase down Jared Meese and work together, but it just didn't seem to be working. Jared was able to continue to gap them a little bit at a time, and eventually Dallas Daniels would make a pass and get ahead of that group, and he would try to pull everybody back forward. But Jared just had that comfy of enough gap on the rider so where he was able to hold everybody off. And with a couple of laps to go, we see a huge cloud of smoke in turns 3 and 4. And at the same time, we see Dalton Gauthier tumble down the scoring charts. Very unfortunate to see that occurrence. And also it was a major distraction for the guys going through 3 and 4. I can completely understand if somebody's momentum and sort of rhythm got thrown off and having to go through that, because it's very alarming to see it happen on the broadcast coming to the end of that race. With a couple of laps to go, it looked like Dallas was going to make a charge, but he never could get close enough. One thing that Jared was able to do throughout the day is keep his momentum up on that higher line, just really carrying speed around the corner and getting off of it so well. Dallas seemed to be going in a little bit lower and drifting up and sacrificing a little bit of corner exit speed. He wasn't able to pull off a slide job pass. He was going to be hurting a little bit coming off the corners. Jared able to keep that momentum up and speed around the track and get away from everybody and stay out of range to get drafted by those Yamahas, and it would play dividends because Jared would come home with the victory. Once again, picking up the win before the series goes into a break. Jared Meese hits a milestone, his 25th mile win on an Indian, his 75th career Premier Class victory, inching closer and closer to Chris Carr for second all time. Jared, only 19 behind Scotty Parker for most all time. And Jared, are you sure you don't want to just hang around and try to beat that record? Come on, man. You know you want to be first in wins too. As we put the results up on the board, behind Jared, we can see Dallas Daniels come home second, Brandon Price third, Briar Bauman gets fourth, Davis Fisher gets fifth. We're going to stop there. Davis Fisher coming across fifth, and Declan Bender riding a bucking bronco of a head shake down the front straightaway on the last lap. Hanging on for dear life, but he comes home sixth, and an amazing finish for him, beating Rookie of the Year rival Trevor Bruner to the line there. And Trevor and Davis Fisher would have a bit of an altercation. A lot of hand throwing. Get off me. Coming off of turn 2, Davis comes home 5th over Declan and Bruner. And another top 10 for Cam Smith, but Brandon Robinson comes home 8th. And that is massive to his championship hunt, as he's going to fall off of Jared and Dallas a good bit on this night. Also unfortunate for Jesse Janish, who was running 12th as we were closing in on the final stages of the race, but doesn't finish. Returning from injury, we talked about Ben Lau and Maxwell. They come home 12th and 13th, respectively. In the points, Jared's able to close in a little bit now. Gets that gap down under 20 to Dallas Daniels as we're heading into Peoria. And this is a track that Dallas has said one of his favorites on the circuit. Even though he had a mistake last year that bled points to Jared Mees, I know Dallas is going to be looking for redemption there. What's interesting about the points right now is that at the end of, heading into Peoria last year, Dallas Daniels had a 2-point lead over Jared Mees. Jared Mees ends up winning the championship last year by 16. So from Peoria to the end of the year, there was an 18-point swing. And right now, Dallas has a 19-point lead, which, if the same thing happens, would give him a championship by just 1 point. Now, with this year, we're supposed to have 6 rounds left in the year, including Peoria, whereas last year it was Peoria plus 4, so 5 rounds in the year. But who knows what's going to happen with the Sturgis TT? That'll get talked about in my airing of grievances later in the episode. In the singles class, Tom Drain looked like he was on tap for a dominating night. He came out the gate, laid down a lap in practice that was almost half a second faster than everybody else. If Tom was going to be doing this, we were in for a boring singles night. And even though Tom was still quick time at qualifying, we were in for far from a boring singles night. And one team that had extra excitement, not necessarily in the best way, would be Rick Ware Racing, whose day started off in a less than ideal scenario where Shayna Texter Bauman has bike problems early in practice, and they have to navigate through that. Also, Chase Sadoff experienced some troubles during practice. There is a lot of bikes, actually, that would not finish their practice and qualifying sessions. Obviously, these big mile tracks are a lot of strain on motors, and these 450s, you basically have them pinned wide open throughout. Even a lot of the twins, you probably got them pinned pretty much wide open throughout, especially at Quoin where the high line was where you needed to be, it looked like. But Tom sets fast time in practice and qualifying, and that top 5 in points with Cody, Tom, Chase, Trent, and James Ott, they gave us quite a preview of what would be in store for later in the night when they were dicing it up during that first qualifying session. As we get into the first heat race, we get another chapter written in the Tom Drain, Chase Sadoff, battling saga, whatever it is. But these two checked out in that heat race and left a hornet's nest behind them with Evan Renshaw, Terrence Santero, Travis Pettin, Tyler Raggio, Aiden Rousseff, Hunter Bauer, all dicing it up for that third spot. But up front, it would be Tom and Chase duking it out for the lead. And Sadoff was able to do just like Mees was and really carry his momentum around the outside of those corners. Tom, at one point, was trying that sliding line, going in low, drifting up, and sacrificing a little bit on corner exit, trying to get small in the draft and still make the passes. But Tom had to switch up his line, switch up his strategy a little bit, and it ended up paying off as he and Chase would charge down to the finish line, with Tom getting the better of Sadoff in this heat race by 2/100ths of a second. Now, behind them, that gaggle from 3rd to 8th was only separated by 0.2 amongst all 6 of those riders, with Evan Renshaw getting the better of that group. Heat race 2, it wouldn't be just a 2-rider breakaway, at least not early on. We would have 8 riders in that gap up until about halfway when a few would drop off and 5 riders would check out from that pack. We got to see Cody Kopp, Trent Lowe, James Ott, Jared Lowe, and Evan Kelleher, who put together a spectacular night. We'll talk more about Evan throughout this show. But up front, Cody and Trent start working together a little bit, gap from the field a touch, and have a drag race to the line that sees Trent get by Cody and win by 2/1000ths of a second. And believe it or not, this would not be the smallest margin of victory on the night. The singles LCQ roll around, and a massive problem occurred here. And it's something we're going to touch on later, so we're going to move past that for right now. Of the 14 riders scheduled, 9 of them made the call, and they put on probably the race of the night, at least until the singles main event would happen. Every rider in this LCQ, all 9 of them, were in a single pack throughout the entirety of this last chance race, putting on a spectacular race. I've used spectacular a lot. I know I'm repeating that word a lot. You could probably have a spectacular counter up here, but I don't have time to put that in there. So do that on your own if you want. I digress. This was a spectacular race between those 9 riders, nearly 6 wide at one point going into turn 3. Anybody's race at any point during this last chance. But ultimately, we would see Ada Rusevans get the best of the pack and go on to win that last chance race, beating everybody else to the line. Again, the field was covered by just half a second coming across the checkered flag. In the Dash for Cash, a super fun chess match between the top of the singles class that sees Trent Lowe at one point go low on the front straightaway, and a line that didn't really pay off for him. But hey, he was trying something new, and what better time to do it than the Dash rather than lose all that ground in the main event. In the end, it would see Chase Sadoff up front with Trent Lowe making a pass on Tom Drain on the last lap going into turns 3 and 4, and that pass, I believe, paid off more for Chase Sadoff than anybody else, as it gave him enough of a gap to not get passed at the line, and Chase goes on to win a class best 4th Dash of the year. Chase had those 3 in a row at one point before going a couple of weeks without one, but now Chase picks up another one of those Al Lamb Dallas Honda Challenge checks and is carrying a lot of positivity and momentum into this main event. Earlier in our intro, we asked if it was better to be lucky than good. Well, it's best when you're lucky and good. That's when you become a champion. And for Cody Kopp, bad luck hit him on the siding lap of the singles main event, where the chain popped off on the back straightaway. You're basically as far from the work area as you possibly could be. Cody tries to run it back. He hops on the bike. They're able to get finally back into where Andrew Butler and the team can go to work on that bike and try to replace the chain, but they don't get it done in time. And the field takes off, roaring into turn 1 with Cody in the inside of turns 4 and his crew working to get a chain back on that bike. So this could have had massive implications on the championship. Could have brought the field to within single digits of Cody Kopp. But you notice that I said could have, and speaking in the past tense. And that's because as the field completed the first lap, a red flag came out due to an exhaust section being on the track in turn 2. And while this would allow Cody to rejoin the race, the drama for Rick Ware Racing would not be over with. Because if the race restarted, Shayna Texter Bauman's bike doesn't go. So more problems for Shayna on this night. And such a bummer because Shayna was looking really sporty in that last chance race, leading at times. She's got 8 wins on a mile in her singles career. And it would just really be nice to see Shay get back up in the mix for a win on these miles. So Shayna ends up 3/4 of a lap down when this race starts. And that field of 18 other riders is charging around the track. Up front, nearly 6 wide again going into turns 3 and 4. I don't think we'll ever see this on another mile. Just Quoin having such a wide racing line, these guys were charging around the track. And it was really fun to see the likes of James Ott and Evan Kelleher, especially riders who haven't been up front much this year, up there and dicing it out with the guys who have been atop the top 3 in championship points. Now, after 2 laps, the champ and points leader Cody Kopp had already worked his way inside the top 10. And by halfway, Cody Kopp took the lead coming off of turn 2. What's the word I was using? Spectacular. Why not? Use that again. Spectacular charge by the champ, Cody Kopp, all the way to the lead coming off of turn 2. However, Cody would never lead this race across the line. Remember that. One of the things about this that was really interesting throughout the night is how much Chase would send it into the corners. He was holding it on, holding off guys who would try to draft underneath him and just carry the lead, not letting guys pass him if he could. Chase was Cindy on this night, and he looked determined. Chase looking to avenge the heartbreak from last year, and he was holding off so many different charges going into 3 and 4. As the race progressed, we ended up having a 9-rider front group dwindle down to 6 at one point when Terrence Santero had a bobble going into 1 and 2, which caused Travis Pettin and Evan Renshaw to check up, and they would lose touch with the leading group, which would consist of Chase Sadoff, Tom Drain, Trent Lowe, Cody Kopp, James Ott, and Evan Kelleher, continuing his magical night at the Magic Mile and looking for his best run of his rookie season. And he's up there in the hunt for the win. With about a minute left going into turn 3, Chase Sadoff gets a little sideways, and we thought he was going to throw it away. But he hangs on to it, and he stays with the leading group. Vital for his race. Then coming to 2 to go, Trent Lowe leads him across the line, and then Trent's Magic Mile becomes a nightmare coming off of turn 2 as the bike gives up and ends Trent Lowe's race. And again, Trent was leading at this time, and it's just such a heartbreak for him as he was in the hunt and could have potentially gotten his first win on the year. So the remaining 5 riders are set to duke it out one final time around the Magic Mile. So who's going to have the dream come true? Who's going to have the magic? Well, as they go into turns 3 and 4, Chase Sadoff is ahead. Tom Drain's in second. Looks like Tom's setting him up for one final charge and to steal another win from the 88. But going underneath Tom would be Cody Kopp. And just like Trent shuffled Tom out a little bit in the dash, Cody shuffles Tom back to 5th coming off of turn 4. Now, we've seen riders in the singles class come from 5th to win the race on the last lap, but that was with a full lap to go in Shayna Texter at Sacramento in 2019. Drafting past 4 other people, coming off of one corner, when your middle to exit speed has already been compromised, that's going to be tricky. And it would not happen. As they come down to the line, Chase Sadoff leads them. Cody Kopp comes up beside him, and at the line, well, real life gives us the true Hollywood scripts. And Chase Sadoff avenges last year's heartbreak and wins the Quoin mile. He wins the Magic Mile by 1/1000th of a second. Chase is able to hold off a rider who's taken so many victories away from him in the past. He gets this one done on the mile, his first mile win of his career, and a spectacular race. Let's throw that in there again. I think I'm just going to do it as a bit now. I'm just going to keep using that word until you guys close the video out. Please don't close the video out yet. Anyway, Chase holds on, wins an amazing race, leads the field across the line. The top 4 separated by 88/1000ths of a second. As we put the results up, Chase Sadoff the winner. Cody Kopp comes home second. James Ott, first podium of the year for the Husqvarna rider. And Tom Drain has to settle for 4th with Evan Kelleher in 5th. Evan was psyched, fist pumping. It's basically a win for this kid who's had a really tough rookie year. He was so strong down in Daytona. Injuries plagued him for a couple of rounds, and it was super cool to see Evan up there mixing it up with those guys on the mile and competing for that win. Santero would hold on to lead that second group across the line, and then a third group was led across by Jared Lowe. So in the singles points, coming into Lima, Tom Drain was third in points. He was the only rider to beat Cody Kopp. Coming into Quoin, Chase Sadoff was third in points. He's the only rider to beat Cody Kopp. So Cody, once again, Wimbledon's going on across the pond, and we'll just say it, Cody holds serve once again. He keeps a 32-point lead on the pack as they head into Peoria after this break. A disastrous blow for Trent Lowe, though. That DNF now drops him into a war with James Ott for 4th in points. And then behind them, that battle for 6th remains tight. Last episode, we were able to give you a status update on where the amateur Nats stood after a couple of days. Well, now we can tell you who some of the champions were out there after that week of racing that led up to prior to the Quoin Mile, the biggest weekend for amateur racing of the year, as riders compete for several awards such as the Horizon Award, Vet Rider of the Year, Youth Rider of the Year, throughout that whole week of racing. And you get to compete on half mile, short tracks, TTs. Unfortunately, the mile was rained out for the amateurs who had to run a second day at the half mile. Starting with our youth riders, Odin Music and Cruz Texter would pick up championships in the 50cc class. The 65 titles would go to Drew Eldred and Jackson Joyner. The 85 class, Mod and Production and Super Mini, well, we'd see Beckham Daniels. Last name sound familiar? It should. Beckham Daniels, Colton Schaefer, and then Australia starts to take over here as well, as Jed Fife picked up 2 of the 85cc titles. In the vet and senior class, Dave Tayo gets the Masters and Super Seniors Championship, while the vet and senior title goes to Adam Beldiga. Then the championships go back to Australia, as Sam Drain picked up a couple of 250 titles. Bodie Page picked up 3 of the 4 big bike titles on the week. Bodie had a dominating start to his week, winning his first 7 races before a crash took him out of the last race of the TT. The final championships will go to some of our award winners. How about Megan Grimel, who picks up the women's championship in a clean sweep, also had a strong showing in the 250 class, and takes home the Fast Brain Award, which is an award given to a rider who shows not only skill on the track, but also in the classroom. And they spoke about some of the credentials for Megan, who's taken several AP classes and super hard worker in school. So congrats to Megan for picking up that award and being getting the Fast Brain Award recipient that year at Amateur Nationals. Very deserving rider to take home that accolade. And then, of course, you know what? We're going to hold off on the Horizon Award for just a second. The Youth Rider of the Year was Drew Eldred, who picked up a 65cc championship and was very competitive across several classes on the week. We've gotten to see Drew compete at Winter Throwdown several times. Drew is a super fast young rider, and it'll be fun to watch his progression throughout the sport, and if he can be not only a Youth Rider of the Year, but maybe a Horizon Award winner in the future. The Vet Rider of the Year, well, he didn't lose a single race all weekend. Sweeping the Masters and Super Senior class, Dave Tayo is a force. And Dave, I think, could probably still make an amateur main event in the 450 class. Dave is quick. Swept the weekend, well-deserving of the Vet Rider of the Year. Last but not least, of course, the Nikki Hayden Horizon Award, which stays in the Turner Racing Camp, as Walker Porter takes home the win this year. Walker was also the 450 production champion, and though Walker's week didn't start probably how he would have liked, by day 3, he picked up 3 wins and then 2 on the final day after going winless to start the week. Walker put together some strong runs there on the short track in the second half mile. Again, picking up a championship and keeping that Horizon Award in the Turner camp. It was really cool to see last year's Horizon Award winner, Evan Renshaw, get to pass the award down to his teammate, Walker Porter, who's had Turner Racing backing. And Walker is one of those riders who we've spoke about so highly on several occasions. It's been really fun to watch Walker's progression from 85s all the way into the 450 ranks now. And again, what an eye-opening moment it was for me, at least, at Travelers Rest back at the AMA Winter Olympics there last year, seeing Walker dice it up with Trevor Bruner, who's the leading rookie in the Super Twins class and an amazing rider in his own right. And Trevor had high praise for Walker that night. Cool to see Walker take home this Horizon Award. What's kind of funny, though, is to see before he was presented that award again on Saturday night during the AFT broadcast, it's a little tug-of-war of the microphone between Joe Bromley and Kristen Beat there during that opening ceremony presentation for Walker. But congratulations to Walker Porter. It's been cool to get to know him this year, and wish him all the best as he continues his career and looks to join the pro ranks next year. Also, I hope everybody had a great week out there at Amateur Nationals. I hope you've gotten home safe from your travels. All right, now it's time for the airing of grievances. And if you're a Seinfeld fan, you know how this is going to go. I got a lot of problems, and you're going to hear about them. The first of which is just the way that Amateur Nationals has been covered. It just doesn't feel like it gets the love and attention that it deserves. It doesn't feel like AMA really markets it as it should throughout the week. Now, I got to give a huge shout out to Howie, Doin, Roger that. They were covering some stuff from Amateur Nationals, doing a pretty good job of sharing results once it was done and doing a handful of rider interviews. They were sort of the media coverage for that. And I would honestly like for AMA Racing to step up. I wish this event was streamed on Fans Choice. After all, part of the reason for keeping Fans Choice subscriptions was because you were going to have Road to AFT events. Where's the Road to AFT events? I haven't seen one single event that has been labeled Road to AFT on Fans Choice. It has been strictly an on-demand hub. So what happened there? Where'd that ball get dropped? I think they could put a little bit of their production budget, at least I hope that they've got the room for it. And it doesn't have to be the full Fox Sports production. You can be a lesser version of that. Get a couple of cameras, maybe a top cam, turn one, somebody in the infield with a reporter of some sort, and give the people who aren't able to take the week off to go see their family or their friends or some of these sponsors who can't make it up there to Amateur Nationals that support these young riders. Give them an opportunity to check this event out and to stay in touch with all the action that's going on and not just rely on your cell phone to shoot Instagram videos. It's just not going to cut it. This is supposed to be the biggest amateur event of the year. And if the AFT event is already going to be in the same city, on the same site, basically, bring some of the production elements there and try to cover it. And if you're not going to stream the full event, okay, fine. Bring a crew up there to tell stories, to do some features on these riders who are up there chasing this American flat track dream as they progress from, 50cc, 65, 85, all the way to 450. I mean, talk about a road to AFT. There it is. It's laid out right in front of you. I want to see this event get more love, get more appreciation, and just be more professional. Even though it's Amateur Nationals, it still should be seen as a big event. I mean, we can't have what happened on the last day happen again, where you're watching the award ceremony. If you're not at the track or if you're at the track, they're going through the points and then they realize everything's tallied wrong. And then that stream cuts off and then we don't hear anything until much later in this week. And if it weren't for the riders saying that they'd won championships, we wouldn't know who won a title. And that's just one of those things you can't let fall through the cracks. If it's the biggest amateur event of the year, these things have to be fine-tuned and buttoned up. My second grievance, I'll make it quick. It comes with the way Chad Coase got treated at Quoin. The rider treatment this is going to actually spiral into something bigger. But to disqualify Chad for the entire night after being found not in compliance with the rule on the Indian during a qualifying session, it seems a little aggressive. I'm not sure the punishment meets the crime there. I just feel like if you broke the rule in qualifying and you got caught, disallow the times from that session. Or I guess you could even disallow his qualifying altogether and he has to start at the back of his heat race. But don't just tank the whole night. I don't really agree with the punishment assessed for that rule. If it was a second offense in the same day, okay, fine. Maybe then you get disqualified. But why not just assess a punishment? He starts at the back of his heat races and you check the bike after the heat race. If it's a problem again, then he gets DQ'd for the night then. Now, my third grievance is going to be a big one. And we talked about how riders are treated. And straight up, AFT has shown blatant disrespect for the riders in their paddock throughout the year. It feels like there's people within this organization that treat this series as a hassle. And that's really frustrating. And it's really concerning as well. It's like there's been this us versus them developed, where the officials don't see the riders and teams as somebody they are working together with, but somebody they have to battle and work, against and fight against. There's this massive disconnect, and that gap has got to close. There's got to be better communication between officials and riders, and that was on full display at Quoin. There obviously wasn't ample communication, and the reason I say that is because you have 5 riders who missed the last chance qualifier for the singles class, and great job the riders who were able to make it out there. They were able to get everything together and get to the track, but it just shows such just real disrespect for the riders, and it's something that riders have felt throughout the year and have expressed their displeasement. And there were 5 privateer singles riders who never got a chance to hit the track and go for a main event in Quoin. One rider even said that the gate got slammed in their face. Another has expressed little interest in going back to another AFT race, that they'd rather go to outlaw races where they feel appreciated. And I saw a story shared by one of my favorite photographers who had said that, imagine being one of the top amateurs who'd been at Quoin all week, and then you go to the mile and you see how the professional series treats their riders. That's going to be you next year. Do you want that? Look, AFT has lost a lot of riders through the years via economics or, again, lack of trust, lack of desire to continue racing in the series. You're losing fans as well. The seats aren't full. Some of that's location. A lot of that's the product. Some of that's treatment, I think. And now you've got the loyal riders, the ones who still want to be there and compete and put on a show and chase this dream of becoming an American Flat Track champion. And you want to run them away too? The series acts like they're doing the riders and the fans a favor by putting on these events. But the fact of the matter is the riders and the fans are the ones doing the series a favor, and they need to show a hell of a lot more gratitude. It's so disheartening to see the riders sacrifice so much for this and to get so little respect in return. And when they express their concerns, when they try to speak up about it, they get shunned aside. Apparently, from what I've heard, Briar Bauman had a very emotional and passionate speech during a riders meeting prior to Quoin about some of the frustrations that he had with communication. And then it's like, rather than try to listen and apply that and have a little more empathy throughout the night, it optically feels like they took it as a shot and then doubled down on the poor treatment of the riders. Maybe it's just unlucky timing. But to hear that have happened at a riders meeting, and then later in the night, 5 riders get ousted from a last chance race, didn't really have a chance to even make it out there. You could have let them roll out on the track and start from the back row. I can't imagine they were that late to getting to the line. I feel like several of them probably could have still attempted to make that race, even if you wanted to assess a penalty for being late to staging. There's just such a disconnect between the officials and the front office, I guess, and the riders and teams. And the riders and teams and the fans are what make this series. The series doesn't make the riders and the fans. And they deserve so much more respect than what they're getting right now. And speaking of riders not being heard or respected for their concerns, that brings me to the Sturgis CT, where several riders have expressed concern about the safety of this event. And if you look at the Super Twins entry list, we're less than a month away or right at a month away from that event. There's still only 6 riders pre-entered and some very noticeable absentees from that entry list. And allegedly it's supposed to be a points race. And I don't know, maybe these riders should sacrifice showing up and chasing the championship. Maybe they should sit this one out and make a statement and not show up and run that race. If they truly feel like this isn't a safe environment and that their concerns aren't being heard, maybe they do need to band together and sit this thing out. It seems like the only thing that matters at this particular event is the Adventure Tracker race. To further disrespect the singles class, the Adventure Tracker race is paying more than twice what the singles class is paying to win that main event. And I'm very concerned about what the future of AFT is going to be. Are we still going to have a twins class? Or is it going to be the singles class and the Adventure Trackers? Now, maybe my concerns about the Adventure Trackers taking over for the Super Twins is unjustified. Okay, fair. My concern with that, I guess, more stems from the fact that there's all these discussions and rumors that you're hearing, these rumblings about the Indian being outlawed in the Super Twins class. Look at the riders that are riding Indians right now. Jared Meese, one of the best to ever do it. Brandon Robinson and Jared Vanderkooy. Trevor Bruner has recently hopped aboard an Indian instead of a KTM. Davis Fisher, Declan Bender, and Chad Coase maybe still going to ride an Indian. We'll see if he's up for it still, if he wants to continue racing with AFT after the way he was treated. But are you expecting Rogers Racing and then Jerry's team to start from scratch? I guess Davis and Trevor could hop back on KTMs with Rackley Racing for Davis Fisher, Rackley Racing and Ben Lau have the KTM, and I guess Davis could hop on one, and maybe Trevor could hop back on a KTM with Michelle and Dave there. But what does Declan Bender do? What does the Grumpy Old Men Racing team do? Do they have to start from scratch? I don't like the direction that I'm seeing in flat track racing. Going to be honest. I worry about whether or not these kids who are chasing Horizon Awards at amateur nationals are going to ever even get a chance to throw their leg over a motorcycle and start an American flat track feature the way we're going. Yeah, I just kind of at a loss for words with the way that this year has happened. All that being said, there are still a couple of storylines that have started to develop that do give me some hope for there being a future. There's a lot of passionate people in this sport who do want to see it succeed and do want to see it grow and get back to some semblance of prominence. And there's a couple of exciting announcements that have come out relating to the twins class. And so I'm going to stop being so gloom and doom. So those are the grievances. That's out of the way. Let's look ahead to a couple of potential positives that we have going, already developing for 2025. And the first of which has got to be the excitement around Cody Kopp moving to the twins class. We almost got a taste of that at Lima, and the deal was undone at the last minute. Although I'm not sure that's exactly a bad thing, because I do think Cody would be better to stay focused on this singles championship and then step up to the twins next year, fully committed to it, chasing that twins rookie of the year. And look, when Cody goes to the twins class, he's going to be a problem. Now, I don't know that he's going to be like the Jet Lawrence and come on and win a championship in his first year, but I think that he could have a comparable rookie season to Dallas Daniels. Now, Dallas finished third in points. He had 2 wins and an average finish of 3.9. Is Cody's average finish going to be on the podium? Who knows? If he's going to be riding the KTM, could that hinder him? We've seen the struggles that Briar Bauman has had. We've heard about Bronson's struggles with that. Those are very talented riders. And Cody is a generational talent as well. I just can't wait to see he and Dallas Daniels get to mix it up in that class, as well as everybody else in that Super Twins class. I'm ready for Cody to take on that challenge, because I never got to see really Cody and Dallas Daniels race each other much in the singles class. Dallas stepped up to the Super Twins class the year after Cody's rookie year, so we haven't gotten to see them battle on equal equipment all that much, except for the times that you get to go to outlaw races where they're there. Getting to see Cody and Briar mix it up on twins together, and anybody else that's still in that class next year. Cody's going to be a force when he goes to the twins class. And while he may not win a championship in his rookie year, if the series can stick around for a long time, I think Cody's going to win several. Also, First Impressions announced that they're going to be running a twins and a singles program. And they asked who people thought would be their picks for those rides. Me personally, I could see if James Ott decides he wants to move up to the twins class, maybe you bring in one of these promising rookies, the likes of a James Arnaz or a Cage Tadman to ride that single and chase a rookie of the year contest for rookie of the year in that class. Or maybe James decides to stick around in the singles class and you bring Chad Coase back to hop on a twin. I also don't know what Trent Lowe's contract looks like with Turner Racing. If James decides he wants to stay in the singles class and Chad wants no part of the twin, maybe Trent Lowe hops on that twin next year. First Impressions and Corey Texter have had a connection in the past. Trent is a rider who trains with Corey a lot. Could that be an opportunity down the line? Very excited to see how that plays out as we enter 2025. And the Super Twins class is at least going to be around for one more year. Quoin definitely delivered thrilling racing. 1/1000th of a second for a margin of victory. Everything we could have dreamed of there in that main event for the singles class especially. So the series takes some time off now. They've got a little bit of a lull before Peoria. Dallas Daniels mentioned it's one of his favorite tracks. Starts are going to be vital there. Tom Dream could potentially chip into Cody Kopp's point lead, although you can't count out Cody anywhere. The kid's not finished worse than 4th on the season. So see if he can continue building on that championship and making it a massive uphill climb for those guys. To everybody, again, that was at Amateur Nationals, I hope you guys have made it home safely. I hope you had an enjoyable week, a great week developing your skill set and hanging around with your flat track family above all else, even with the dilemmas that arose with that event. I hope everybody had a good time. If everybody is safe and back home with your families. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your summer and competing and racing throughout the rest of the year. If you're heading back to Amateur Nationals again next year, wish you all the best in contesting for awards and AMA number ones and those honors. And for the riders who this was your last Amateur Nationals before you step up to the pro ranks, can't wait to see you take on the AFT circuit when the time comes. Looking forward to seeing what the next crop of rookies has in store. It was really great to see in the results that I could find the depth in those big bike classes. Amateur Nationals deserves to be built up more, and I hope that in the future we continue to see so many of the top riders from across the country continue to descend on whatever location Amateur Nationals is placed at. I do hope one year maybe I can make it up there and experience that whole week, especially now that some of our good friends have kids that are starting to go through their journey in their own road to professional flat track racing. Just really cool to keep up with everything that I could. So thank you to everybody that took time to go out there and be part of that event. Thank you to all the sponsors that were part of it. Thank you to Mission Foods and Roof Systems, who does so much for flat track racing in general. Guys, if you're a fan of the sport, please support the series sponsors. Please support the riders. Give them a like, follow on Instagram. They post things, comment on it when you can. Please check out all the people who are doing stuff to create content around flat track, who are pushing this and talking about this sport. Support the podcasts. Tank Slapping Podcast, Off the Groove with Scotty Taylor. Support the YouTube channels like Sammy Halbert and Mike Dillon with Flat Track Factory. Support the riders who are showcasing their racing. McLean Drucker, Frank Fabricius, who has shown so many things about District 6 and 7 up in the Northeast. Also, we talked last week, Sammy Halbert, support his journey to the FIM World Championship. The U.S. got their butt kicked a little bit by the Australians here this past week, but Sammy's over to fly the American flag in Europe, and he's going to get redemption over there as well from having that taken away from him last year. We will hopefully be talking about FIM Flat Track champion Sammy Halbert later this year. So he started the OnlyFans thing. So if you can subscribe to that, you'll get exclusive content from those FIM championships while Sammy's over there. You're going to get flat track content, not that other stuff. At least I think. Sammy, don't trick us. Again, thank you so much for watching this. Thank you for supporting this. Let me hear your commentary. Let me hear what you guys thought of Amateur Nationals if you were there. Let me hear your thoughts on the last chance debacle that happened with the singles class. Let me hear what you think. First impressions racing should do with their team next year. Let me hear your thoughts on what your expectations are for Cody Kopp as he transitions into hopefully the Super Twins class next year. What are some of the things you're most excited about in the sport? What are some of the things that you have questions about? Where do you think I'm dumb and don't know what I'm talking about? Because that list is probably pretty long. But nonetheless, thank you guys so much for supporting this. Thank you for watching. And I hope we can keep this ball rolling. We're going to take a week off because broadcast commitments are robbing me of every bit of sleep that I've ever wanted to potentially get. This whole 3-4 hours a night thing, this is tough. But yeah, big broadcast week coming up on my end. So going to step away for a week to focus on that. There's major outlaw racing going on, so support those events if you can. Before I leave, 2 events that I want to hype up for sure. August 17th, Brad Baker's doing his Baker's Bash in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Check out bulletstrong.com for all the details on that. $10,000 purse and prizes for that event. And Brad is one of the people who's always been so welcoming to me whenever I've gone down to speak to him in the pits at events when he was racing and broadcasting as well. I'm so thankful to see Brad still involved in the sport. Again, just one of the nicest people. Became one of my dad's favorite riders. In fact, Brad was a major reason that got my dad back into flat track racing after Will Davis passed away. My dad wasn't going to the track a whole lot after that. Then he got to meet Brad and really get back involved with following it on a frequent basis after talking to Brad. Also, Corey Texter, he's bringing racing back to Hagerstown once again, the second annual Corey Texter Hagerstown Flat Track Race. Amazing time there last year. Had a blast getting back to one of my favorite facilities in the world. Hagerstown holds a place near and dear to my heart, and I'm glad Corey's able to keep that event going. I love my friends, but I'm a little annoyed that they scheduled their wedding that weekend, so I won't be able to make it back up there. But please support Corey's event, CoreyTexterPromotions.com. Seriously, that Hagerstown race last year, Trevor Bruner and Briar Bauman on that first night, that open expert race, what a battle that was. And you can expect more of the same. The track was completely different from how I ever remember it. Everybody, flat track racing, a lot of guys have started you've got banking in these tracks. They're getting up there by the wall and the hay bales. It was so fun to see those guys race around the top there at Hagerstown, where I'm used to seeing that track run more toward the middle or the bottom at times when I was watching nationals there. But a super fun race, super fun atmosphere. Corey pulls out all the stops to make his events a great time, and sounds like there's going to be a pretty good crowd in attendance. So make sure you get out to Hagerstown for that event as well. That's it. We're done. We're going to hang it up for this week. So y'all take care. Have a great time. Be safe. Love each other. And we'll talk to you in a couple weeks when we get closer to Peoria. Peace, y'all.